out. I run an organization called Step and Stone, which is a business coaching and consultancy company. We started in London in 2013 and relocated the business to Nairobi, Kenya in 2016, where we've been operating full-time ever since. And it is absolutely my passion to particularly support women in business to make a living doing what they love, right? So whatever that business might look like to them, you don't necessarily need to be creating the next unicorn or selling out equity at any point in time. You can genuinely be a business owner and use your passion to earn a living. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. And I just want to now start with an overview of what you can expect over the next 2 hours while we're together. So first, I'm going to be sharing with you some myths and truths of entrepreneurship. There's a lot of things that you may have heard out there. So let's debunk the things that aren't true and let's be honest about the things that are true. I'll also be asking you to share your experience shortly in the comments. So this is going to be interactive. Feel free to even now jump in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from. I know that we have people who have signed up from all over the continent. So yeah, tell us who you are, drop that into the chat and be interactive. We're then going to focus on the unique challenges faced by women in business. Now, especially as women, we know that there are unique challenges that are faced by us. In addition to running my coaching business, I also used to be the co-founder of a networking club here in Kenya called the AfriLove Connection Club. And we supported specifically women in business to teach them the business skills that they were missing, to open up dialogue around topics of importance to women in business, and also to open up their networks. So I'm going to be sharing some insights from our time running that club, which was over 700 women in that network, and highlight some of those unique challenges. We're then going to move into a discussion with our panelists. We've already briefly said hello to Christelle and to Kirsten. We'll be joined by 2 other women who are entrepreneurs here on the continent, one from Kenya and one from Ethiopia. And we'll be hearing their insights and their experience of doing business here and also the support that's been provided to women in business. Finally, we'll move into some Q&A. So again, we want this to be interactive. We want you to be able to call on the experience of the women who are going to be on this panel and also my own experience as a business owner over these years, and ask us questions, ask us things that you want to know. Maybe you're working on something specific and you want our advice or our insights. Feel free to jump in during that Q&A section to ask us whatever you need. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some next steps. So there is an accelerator program kicking off in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll be giving you more detail about that. Make sure you stick around until the end. It's an opportunity to get even more support on your project or your business. And we'll be sharing the next steps with you towards the end of our conversation today. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and get started with some myths and some truths. Let me know in the chat, what are some of the myths that you have heard about entrepreneurship? And don't be shy. Yeah, so Ruben's going to manage the chat for us. We'll move into some others. I know that people tend to be a little shy on Zoom these days. I get it. We all have Zoom fatigue. We always can't jump into the chat when we're being asked to, but that's fine. We're going to run through some now, but feel free to share your experience in the chat with us as well. Okay. So great. Thanks, Ruben. Okay. So the first myth that you may have heard is that everyone can be an entrepreneur. How many people have heard this myth? Who believes that this is true? Everyone can be an entrepreneur. Yes, okay, perfect. That's exactly what someone's just popped into the chat. Christine, some people say entrepreneurship is not meant for everyone. Okay, so is it true? Is it not true? Is it a myth? Is it a truth? Let's see why it's a myth. Why is it not true that everyone can be an entrepreneur? Well, here's why. Some people are genuinely better to be in employment with a boss. It really sometimes is simpler. The reason for that is when you're running a business, especially when you're starting out, you might be entirely on your own. It is your responsibility to set your strategy, your priorities, to keep yourself focused, to get things done, to make decisions, and to have maybe your own directive over your work, right? You have to be the one that's setting these priorities and taking action. Some people are not very good at that. They cannot do that. They are better being managed. The other thing to think about in terms of entrepreneurship versus employment is that entrepreneurship has a lot of uncertainty in it. You may be doing great for a little while and then you find that business isn't great again. And so maybe at one point you had a salary and now you don't have a salary. Some people are not able to deal with that uncertainty because they don't have the circumstances to allow them to, or they just don't like that volatility. Okay. The second reason that not everyone can be an entrepreneur is because there's more to entrepreneurship than just your idea. You actually need to be able to execute on that idea. So what that means is you need to develop the business skills to allow you to do that execution. And some of these things you might end up hiring other people for, but again, especially in the beginning, you don't always have the cash flow to bring in other expertise. So you need to be able to execute, you need to be able to take action. And some people are just the ideas people. They are not great at the execution. They are not great at growing the business. They just have that idea. Okay. So in that case, you might want to partner with some other people if you know that you're a great ideas person, but that you're not into the detail or the execution. The next reason why not everyone can be an entrepreneur is because your passion really is not enough to run a successful business. Okay. Yes, you may be super passionate about your idea and you believe wholeheartedly that you can make it work, but ultimately you need to have a product that people actually want to buy, a product or a service. You need to have processes that support your customers from finding out about you to actually purchasing from you. And you need other people to come on board to support you in that process, whether that be admin staff or marketing or sales or finance. You won't be able to do everything on your own. So your passion really isn't enough. You need to start to develop business skills. You need to make sure that you have something that people want to buy, and you need a process that people can follow so that you start to make those sales. And then finally, it takes a lot of resilience, and you need to be ready to ride out those highs and the lows. And as I touched upon in the first point, not all of us can do that. Not all of us are mentally strong enough to say, yes, this is a lifestyle that I want to have. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of low points in entrepreneurship. You're going to face rejection. You're going to hear people say no. You're going to have to change your mind sometimes. And those are all really low points where you're like, is it even worth it? So not everyone has the resilience to carry through when things are getting tough. Okay. Okay, I'm here. I'm seeing some others. So given women with children and kids will not have time to meet leadership obligations, business people don't have a boss. Great. Yeah, these are definitely some myths also, because business people do have a boss. Sometimes it's themselves. Sometimes it's somebody else. And then with women and children and kids, this is a stereotype that we definitely have to debunk, because we can achieve a lot, right? We can raise a family and we can have a business. Absolutely. So we'll be touching on that later. That definitely ties into some of the things that we hear a lot within women in business environment. All right. The next myth that we are going to cover off is, entrepreneurship will make you rich. Hands up if you think that entrepreneurship is a pathway to financial freedom. Let's see in the chat who agrees with this statement. Entrepreneurship will make you rich. Yeah, some hands are going up. Great. Yeah, some of you think this, and it's true. Entrepreneurship can make you rich, but it's not guaranteed, okay? So why is it not true that entrepreneurship will make you rich? First of all, 90% of startups fail within the first 5 years. We hear the statistic all the time. And in some cases, it's actually getting even worse, because the environment around us, the economic environment, the political environments around us are just getting harder for us to do business in. So 90% of startups will fail within the first 5 years. It is very unlikely that you are going to be able to get rich in the first 5 years of business unless you have an amazing idea that's really selling. And let's be honest, if you had an amazing idea, you wouldn't probably be going out of business within the first 5 years. So yes, it can be a pathway to richness and to financial freedom, but it's a lot of work to get you there, okay? For an example, there are 582 million entrepreneurs in the world, okay? However, there's only 19.6 million millionaires, and that's in US dollar terms, okay? So the number of entrepreneurs that are out there, those that are actually turning into millionaires, let alone billionaires, is such a small percentage, okay? So it's unlikely that the majority of business owners are going to become millionaires through their business. Although it is possible if you put the right systems in place, you have something that's a product market fit, and there's demand for what it is that you're doing, okay? The other thing to consider is that not all millionaires that are listed in that 19.6 million are entrepreneurs, right? So not all millionaires are entrepreneurs. Other millionaires get their money from other places. Some of them have inherited money. Others have made their money in the corporate setting. If you think about, Wall Street and the financial services industry, there is tons of millionaires in that space that are not at all entrepreneurs. So you do have some millionaires that are in employment. You have other millionaires that have just come from generational wealth. And then, of course, you do have entrepreneurs in there, but not all of those 19.6 million are going to be entrepreneurs. So that brings your chance of entrepreneurship, millionaire through entrepreneurship, even slimmer. And then finally, most entrepreneurs get into the habit of not taking a salary. I know that I am guilty of this. There's been times that I've had to withdraw my salary even after things have been going well, just because we've had to take a cash flow conservative perspective. And all of the business owners that I work with start out in a point where they are not taking a salary that actually even funds their lifestyle. Many founders are digging into their own pockets over and over and over again. So because of that, because you're not taking a salary, the truth is that on a month by month basis, you are far more likely to earn more through employment than entrepreneurship. Okay. So this is why it's a myth. Not everyone will become a millionaire through entrepreneurship. You might get more money than you do in employment over time, but especially in the immediate short-term future, you will definitely earn more in a job. And some people need that salary in order to keep them sustained. Okay. The next myth that I see all the time is that you need a business plan. Okay. I see this all the time, and I have clients who come to me and they say, I really want us to spend some time writing a business plan. That 30-page document that we put a lot of work into. However, most of it might be copied and pasted from the internet from different sections so that it looks cohesive. Here's why you don't need a business plan, okay? You do need to plan for your business and create structure, but it doesn't need to be in that 30-page document, okay? Often that document is required for banks, for other funding institutes, or because we think that we need it, right? Maybe some sort of grant making body is asking us to submit it to them. To create the plan, that document, just for the sake of saying that you have a physical thing on a piece of paper, is not really a great use of your time. It's far better to get started and test out your ideas than to spend time on that fictional document. Because let's be honest, when you write a business plan for the first time, a lot of it is going to be assumption. You are not going to know what exactly to put in each section until you get out there and start actually putting the work in to learn what you're doing. At that point, yes, you can put that into more structure, you can put that into documentation, but in the beginning, I wouldn't recommend spending your time writing that document. Instead, you want to spend your time on execution. Worry about the business plan when you actually need it, for example, for bank loans, funding, investment, etc. And you're still going to be thinking about each of those sections of your business as you get into execution. But again, you don't need to spend time being hypothetical about it. I would much rather you be practical and get out there and test things, do things, and then you can put that into words later. Okay. The next myth that you have probably heard loads and loads of times is that competition is bad. Now think about it. We think that if there's competition, then there's more clients out there that are not going to buy from us because they can go and buy from our competitors. The other thing that we do when there's competition is we watch with keen interest what is it that these competitors are doing. We want to know everything that they're doing, and sometimes we follow it, sometimes we mimic it, and we also make assumptions that they're doing better than us. So we think competition is bad because it will ruin our prospects in business. But the truth is, competition shows that there's a market for what you're doing. Think about it. If you have several restaurants side by side next to each other in a shopping center, you probably don't think, oh my goodness, there's a chicken place next door and I'm trying to sell pizza. Why are people going to come for me for pizza when this guy is selling chicken? And then maybe across the hall there's another person that's selling fish, right? And you think also, okay, why is someone going to buy my pizza or my chicken if there's someone selling fish? When you have three restaurants in that small proximity, what it shows is that there's people there who need to eat, right? And yes, they do want to have variety. Maybe one day they want fish, one day they want chicken, one day they want pizza, and they'll rotate amongst all three of you if they come back to your location more than once. So competition shows that there's demand, there's a market, there's people willing to buy what it is that you're selling, right? Because you know that people are going to buy it. The other thing is that there really is room for everyone. Okay. So think about how many schools exist, or how many vegetable stalls exist, or how many restaurants exist that people can choose from. There is room for everyone. The real key is to identify who is it that you're trying to be in business for and what makes you different from your competition. Okay. So maybe, for example, your competition targets a different target audience than you do. Maybe your competition is going after men, and you yourself in your business, your target market is women. So there's space for people to decide, this is the service provider or the product person that I want to choose from. You allow your customers to make a decision, and they're going to go with the one who resonates the most with them. It's not bad to have competition. It's even better that your clients or your potential clients have options, right? Competition can also keep you on your toes. So it helps you. I'm not saying that you should go out there and copy what your competition is doing, or that you are constantly trying to catch up to what they're doing, but it strives to help you. It helps you strive to do better. So it gives you opportunities to go out there and listen to your customers, to ask them questions. If you find that your sales are decreasing, go out and talk to them, find out what's missing from what it is that you sell, and make adaptations so that you can even better suit that market. Okay. And then the final reason that competition is not bad is because when you truly fulfill a need, you ultimately will find customers. This is known as product market fit. It means that your product or your service is a perfect fit for the market. It's a perfect fit for your customer. Your customer needs what it is that you're selling. They desire what you're selling. And when that actually happens, when you're truly meeting a need, it becomes a no-brainer for customers to come to you. So don't worry about competition. Of course, stay on your toes, be aware that they're there, but let them kind of keep up with themselves, and you stay focused on what it is that you're trying to execute and what you're trying to achieve. Right? And then the final myth that I want to debunk for you today is that you can do it all on your own. Now, we try, and many of us go into business solo to begin with, myself included. And it's partly because we can't afford to bring other people on board, or maybe we genuinely believe that we can develop the business skills that we need to cover all of these different areas. We want to keep our costs low, and we say, okay, I'm a smart enough person, I can probably figure this out. But it causes problems down the line. So here's why you cannot do it all on your own. First of all, you can't be an expert at everything. So in the beginning, yes, you can try to do some things on your own. You can try to manage your social media and get your website going and have client calls and send out emails and manage your diary and all of those other tasks that are involved with just some of the day-to-day running of a business. Forget about product development and research and strategy and all of these other tasks that you want to do. You won't be great at everything. Okay. So genuinely, for your business to grow, at some point, you need to focus on what you yourself are good at, and you need to bring in people that can support you in the things that you're not so good at. I promise you that when you take this stance, when you say, okay, let me start hiring other people to do things and they are better at than I am at it, you will see your business grow because you will be able to spend more time and focus on the revenue generating activities that perhaps only you can do. So maybe your sales calls with clients is something only you can do. Or maybe you're the research person behind whatever it is that you're offering, and it's your brains and only you can do that. So get someone else to do these other things so that you can focus on the things that you're great at. And those are ultimately the tasks that are going to bring in more revenue for your business. The next reason why you can't do it all alone is because there's genuinely strength in a team. Think about the number of times that you've been able to sit down and brainstorm with someone and get different ideas, or think about something from a different perspective just because of what somebody said. So when you're working with other people, there's opportunities for you to collaborate, for you to get the best out of each individual, and for you to continuously grow your business with new and innovative ideas. Also, a team helps to support you. So it takes some of the pressure off of your plate. It often makes life more enjoyable because you have people around you that that you're co-working with. And you can often get further than doing it on your own. The next reason you can't do it all on your own is because eventually your business must be able to run without you. At some point, you need to take a break. You need to take a holiday. You need to recharge, or maybe you decide that you want to have a child and you need to take a little bit of maternity leave so that you can spend time raising your child. At some point, your business needs to function without you. Otherwise, you become the bottleneck to generating revenue in your business. Okay. And plus, why are we working so hard as entrepreneurs? At some point, we want to have time freedom and financial freedom. And that only comes as you really can grow into a sustainable business. Okay. And then finally, and this will only be specific to some of you, being a one-person shop, a one-woman shop, severely impacts your access to finance sometimes. Many times, if you go into accelerator or incubation programs, or grant funding, they look to see who else is supporting you. They never want to have just one person on the team because they know, just as I've just explained to you, that you actually cannot do everything, that to run your business properly, you need to have support. So when you have just one person on the team, your potential investors, banks, and funders won't want to give you money because they don't believe that you can probably do it on your own. Okay, so that's something to consider. That doesn't mean that you need to have a co-founder. You absolutely can be a solo founder, but it does mean that you will want to have other people on your team, whether those are managers or direct reports, who support you in what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve in your business. All right. Oh, there's actually 6 myths. Sorry, I thought we were finishing on 5. So number 6, myth number 6 is that you can sell to everyone. Okay. Now, I see this all the time with business owners. And the reason that we believe that we can sell to everyone is because we want to be able to sell to everyone. We believe that if we sell to everyone, then more money will come in the door, that we will have more customers. And that if we restrict who we sell to, then there runs into this challenge of like, okay, but I don't want to turn away business. Here's why you can't sell to everyone. The first reason is because you really need to start with a specific market and a specific problem, okay? You need to know what problem you are solving in your business and who you are solving it for. And this is when we often refer to as niching, or in the US, they call it niching, different pronunciation. You may have heard both, but this is where we talk about niching. You're getting really clear about who your market is, because that actually makes all of your decisions much easier later. And we'll talk about these in a few seconds. So the other reason you can't sell to everyone is because your marketing message becomes very diluted if you don't have a clear audience. So for example, let's say that you have a business, let's say that you have a fashion house, that you make clothes, and you say that you can make clothes for absolutely anybody. You can make clothes for boys and girls, you can make clothes for women, you can make clothes for men, you can make clothes for evening events, you can make clothes for weddings and daytime, and you can make any kind of clothes that you absolutely can think of, right? Because the technique is the same, the stitching is the same, the thoughts about cutting and putting things together is the same. What happens when you then say, I can make absolutely anything, is that you don't become known for who you are and for what you do. Okay. You don't have a clear message that people are like, oh, okay, Danielle is definitely the person that can make me this dress that I need for this wedding that I'm attending to. Okay. Or Danielle is definitely the person that can clothe my kids with cute, fun clothes. Right. You don't become known for any of that. And so people don't know that you're the expert in that area. So if they said, so for example, let's say you send a WhatsApp message to a group of people and you say, does anybody know a tailor who can make children's clothes, right? And I immediately put up my hand and say, yes, this person is awesome at children's clothes. Look at these photos of my children who are dressed in this woman's designs, right? Whereas if instead I was asking, does anybody know a tailor? And it was a very generic question, I'll then get like 15, 20, maybe 30 different people recommending different tailors. And then I have to go and find out if any of them are any good at children's clothes, right? So the more specific you can be about the problem that you solve, in this case, providing children's clothes, the easier it is for people to refer you on, right? Because the second someone says, I want someone who makes children's clothes, I know who to send your way. If you're just saying, I want someone that makes clothes, I might send you a children's clothes person, and the adult clothes that they make are not so great, or vice versa, right? Ultimately, a diluted marketing message means that you grow at a slower pace. You're all over the place. You're trying to serve all of these different markets. You're trying to make adjustments for each of the opinions of these different types of people. And because of that, you have like a scattergun approach. You're trying this idea out, and you're trying this idea out, and you're trying this idea out, and none of them are really getting momentum because you're not focused, okay? And that leads me on to my final point here, which is that entrepreneurs like to come up with ideas. We get ideas all the time. We're like, oh, I could just do it this way, or maybe I can offer this service, or maybe I can start to create this product. And we just go full steam ahead. What you really need to do is stay focused and execute on one thing at a time. So choose one market to start with and give it some time. And if for some reason it doesn't work out, then move on to the next idea, because you won't have the capacity to do things many times concurrently. You won't have an opportunity to do things, side by side with each other. You may have to start on one and then on the other and then on the third one, because again, you lose your focus. It's very difficult to manage your time in that way and to really make progress on anything, okay? So those are our 6 myths. We're now going to move. Oh, we have 7. I keep changing the number. Sorry, guys. I should have double checked this before I started talking this morning. I was sure we had 5. But anyway, myth number 7 is that you need capital to get started. Okay, so how many people need money? All of us, every single one of us. If we're asked if we need more funding for our businesses, we will absolutely put our hands up and say yes. However, we don't always need to have funding in our business. Okay, here's why. The first reason is because you can test an idea through market research and prototyping without investing much money. What does that mean? You can have conversations with your ideal customer. You can not sell your idea to them, but get their feedback. Ask them open-ended questions that say things like, how would you solve this problem? Or how do you currently get from point A to point B? Or what is something that you want to change in your life or in your business that you're struggling to do? So you do this market research to try to find out what is the demand for this idea that I have, and how can I develop it further without necessarily spending money actually developing it, right? So just getting more ideas, making your ideas more concrete. The same with prototypes. A prototype can be, for example, an app, right? Do not go and build an entire all singing, all dancing app and then launch it and then be disappointed that no one is interested, or that it doesn't work the way that you want it to. Instead, you can start doing app development just on a couple of pieces of paper. You can draw out your little screens, what they might look like, your user experience, and you can have someone go through these different pieces of paper as though they were the screen of your mobile phone, so that you're, okay, what would I do on this screen? I'd push this button. What does that then do? And then you show them the next screen that would take them to the next action. You don't need money for that. You don't need to hire a developer for that. You can literally just draw it on a piece of paper and get their feedback in the process, okay? The next reason that you may not need funding to get started is because people may be willing to negotiate terms with your startup rather than asking for salaries. So for example, maybe you offer some equity to some of your early employees or to your co-founders, or employee-based share options where they get shares at some point in the future, and then they can exercise those for cash or for like part ownership in the business, like small percentages. So you don't always need to think about having money to pay for people to join you, you can sometimes think about more creative ways to compensate them. And also, some people will be willing to do things under these terms because they really, really want the experience of working in your startup specifically. As I mentioned at the start of this myth, literally everyone has an idea, and everyone that has an idea needs money to execute it. You are not alone in being a business owner who always would wish that you have a little bit more cash. We all wish that we have a little bit more cash, but you need to make your idea credible enough that people are even willing to invest in you. And typically, it takes time for your business model to be in a place where you are able to generate that funding from outside. In the beginning, it's mostly going to be coming out of your pocket, or perhaps you can convince some friends, families, and fools, they call it. So friends, families, and fools to lend you some money or to give you some money or to, support your idea as you get things on the ground. And then finally, if your idea truly has a market, if there are customers that are looking for this thing, revenue is going to eventually come. I see so many startups go out there and get onto like the pitching circuit where they go out to an event and they share their startup idea. There's maybe a panel of people that are criticizing it or offering feedback. And then they're trying to get some sort of funding from these events, right? I see so many business owners waste so much time pitching at one after another, just to try to get money in the door. If that same individual spent nearly as much time actually out there in the market trying to find customers, you would make a lot more progress in your business that way than you would by spending all of your time creating slide decks and perfecting your pitch. That's not to say that you don't get funding at some point in the future. Absolutely, you might need to. But you really do need to build up your business to a stage where investors want to even give you that chance, right? And that tends to take time because you need to start to prove that people want what it is that you have. They often want to see that you have early followers, early customers, and things of that nature. Okay. So that wraps up our myths, I promise this time. Let's now move on to the truths. Drop into the chat, what are some truths that you've heard about business or that you yourself believe about entrepreneurship? What are things that are true for you? Let's see what people have to say. I'll give you some time to pop that into the chat while we just continue to move through. So the first truth is that you don't need to be a business person to be successful in business. Let me repeat that for those who need to hear it again. You do not need to be a business person to be successful in business. Here is why that is true. The first reason is because there are abundant resources available to us that can teach you the things that you don't know. You just have to go out there and look for them. For me, in the experience that I've had with the clients I've worked with over the years, the non-negotiable skills that you probably want to at least get some sort of familiarity with and develop are relationship management, financial management. So relationship management, how do you get customers? How do you attract those customers and make them happy? Financial management, understanding the cash that's coming into your business, going out of your business, and how you price stuff. That's super important. Another critical skill for business owners is marketing. So being able to talk about your business with confidence and ease so that you can bring people on board and buying into your idea. Those are definitely three super critical skills for every single business. Another one that you will want to start to develop is strategic thinking, really starting to think about the bigger picture of your organization and how it is that you can reach those bigger goals that you have in the future. And then the final thing that you'll want to be good at in some capacity is execution. So making sure that you have the tools available to yourself to actually execute on ideas. And that's a bit of like operations management. So thinking about how to set up processes for your business, systems for your business, etc. Those are really what I see as the 5 critical skills that every business owner should at least get comfortable with. But ultimately, you want to build that team to support you, okay? So you don't need to be an expert in business because at some point in the future, you probably want to bring on people that are better at you than you are at maybe managing teams or a finance expert, or maybe you need to bring salespeople in. Again, focus on your area of expertise and hire people for the rest. But you do want a basic understanding so that you can advise whether your clients are doing, so that you can advise your team if they're doing the right things, right? The next thing is that it's all about your attitude and not your ability. So what I mean here is that you have to shift your mindset to where there's a will, there's a way, right? So if this is something that I really want, I will find a way to make it happen. If this is something that I need to understand, I will find a way to understand it. I will find the support that I need. I will find the people that I need. I will find the resources that I need. I will find the money that I need. Try to give yourself this open mindset of looking for possibilities rather than closing yourself down. And then your success is far more dependent on your resilience, your resourcefulness, and your ability to ask for help. So remember, you need to be resilient. You need to be able to manage the highs and lows of business. And my gosh, there's definitely going to be some. So you need to be resilient. You need to persevere even when times are tough, right? Then you need to be resourceful. You need to look for things that you don't know how to do, or you need to look for the right people. You need to try things in different ways, etc. And the ability to ask for help, it sounds easy, but a lot of us don't want to ask for help because we don't want to admit that we don't know, or we don't want to tell people our weaknesses. When you ask for help, you not only give people the opportunity to step in, but you're really growing as a business owner, because again, you cannot do it all on your own. Okay. So I see that there's some questions that are coming into the chat. I'm going to save all of the questions for the end. Some of these are really rich conversations, and I think we can definitely even bring them into the panel. But Naja, I'm noting yours right now, and we'll come back to that. Okay. The next truth is that it will be hard. You need to be prepared for the highs and the lows. I'm sure that all of us on today's training have experienced this as business owners. We know exactly what it's like, that there's going to be highs and lows. So here's why this is true. First, starting to bring in money will definitely take you longer than you think. You need to understand how that impacts you personally. So for example, let's say that it takes you 12 months to start to bring in money into your business. And maybe even with that 12 months, you're still not able to pay yourself a salary from that business. So how are you then paying for your lifestyle? How are you managing your household? How are you sending your children to school? How are you affording all of the other life expenses that exist? You need to understand what impact that has on you if you are not taking money in from your business. Okay. And it's funny, when I was starting when I was starting my business 8 years ago, I remember hearing the statistic that, take however long you think it's going to take and double that amount of time. So if you believe it's going to take 6 months for your business to get off the ground, double that. It's going to take you at least 12 months. Now, the mistake that I made is I thought, but I am super determined and I am passionate and I am smart and I can figure it out. And I'm going to have it happen faster. Like I can definitely make things work within the next 6 to 9 months. But no, the truth is, even when you're smart, even when you're determined, even when you're focused, even when you're passionate, it is going to take you longer. So recognize that, build in that buffer for yourself, and understand how that's going to impact you personally. The other way that it gets hard is that you are going to face rejection. People are going to say no to you all the time. Maybe it's customers that say no. Maybe it's partners that pull out. Maybe it's suppliers that decide that they're no longer going to work with you, or that they're not going to do it under the terms that you need. Maybe it's investors that say no, or perhaps it's even friends and family, which is very common because many times our friends and family, they only want the best for us. And they don't understand how watching us suffer as an entrepreneur, working long hours, keeping late nights, and not bringing in that much money, they don't understand why we would choose that lifestyle. And unless they've done it themselves, it can be very difficult for them to be supportive of that. So you're also going to potentially face rejection from friends and your family who just don't understand the journey that you're on, and they miss you. They miss the old you. They want to be able to have you in their presence, interacting with them the way that you used to, and now maybe you're busy. So don't let their fears get in the way, but just recognize that those are some rejections that you are definitely going to face. The other reason it's hard is because you have to make decisions all the time without ever really knowing all of the parameters. So you might have a lot of information, but you don't have all of the information. Sometimes you are just going to have to take risks. And that can keep some of us stuck. We may not want to make the risk. We might be just stuck in this paralysis of not being able to decide what thing is better than the other. Okay, so that makes things really hard sometimes, especially when you're on your own, because you may not have the ability to um, like to bounce ideas off of somebody else, or to like have a sounding board. Okay. And then finally, the reason it's hard is because starting a business can have huge impacts on our personal relationships and our professional relationships. I alluded to this a couple of moments ago when I shared that a lot of times our friends and families don't understand what we're doing, and that can put a lot of strain on us. There's also times that you might decide that people in your current circle are no longer the ones who you need to be by your side, because maybe they're negative all the time. Maybe they downplay your dream. Maybe they tell you it's not going to work, and you don't need that discouragement. So you may decide at some points to cut people out of your life. And that's really hard, because the ending of any relationship comes a grief. Grief comes with that. There's a transition that comes with that. Okay. So that's our first. So definitely, entrepreneurship is hard. Our third truth is that your business needs to run without you. Okay, your business needs to be able to run without you. Why is this true? First of all, your business is not going to grow if you are a bottleneck. If you are the one that is responsible for everything, then ultimately people are going to be depending on you to do stuff or make decisions or to give direction before they can do their work. If you are responsible for absolutely everything, at some point you are going to cause delays. Absolutely, right? And you are definitely going to drop the ball, meaning you are going to lose track of something. You're going to forget. You're going to give the wrong instruction or make a mistake, right? You cannot have all of these moving pieces all of the time forever, okay? Then you need to be able to take time off. Starting and growing a business, it takes long hours, and burnout is a real thing. Okay. So we're always taught that we can be productive, that we can do more, that we should be able to achieve. And we put tremendous pressure on ourselves to be able to do that. Plus, on top of that, working long hours, maybe not having work-life balance, being unable to connect with people because you're tired or you're busy. So you're losing out on all of these other things that bring you joy. Rest is super, super important, because otherwise you will face burnout. I myself, as an entrepreneur, have faced burnout a number of times. As an employee, I also faced burnout twice. That's when I was working in financial services and doing 14, 15-hour days with super stressful conditions. When burnout strikes, you don't have any control anymore. Your body literally can shut down and make it impossible for you to physically or mentally do anything. So try not to let yourself ever get to that point. I am certainly on a path that I don't ever want to experience that again, and build rest into my schedule. But in order to be able to do that and to make sure that business can continue to run, you do ultimately need to have other people around to support you. Okay. And then finally, a business that can run without you is often both scalable and sellable. So for example, think about my business, which is, as I mentioned at the beginning, coaching and consultancy. Although I can hire consultants in to deliver particular pieces of my program, I probably, at this stage anyway, wouldn't bring someone in to be the content designer, the creator, right? That's my brain power, that's my expertise. And so it's difficult for me to think about how to scale particular parts of my business. You need to have something that ultimately is replicable, that you can do in multiple quantities or multiple locations. And what I mean by sellable, if at some point you do have a desire for your business to be something that somebody else buys in the future, then knowing that you are not a bottleneck, that you are not a key person dependency, that it's running without your interference, means that someone else can buy it and take over. Okay. Another truth, you absolutely need to make money in order to survive. Let me repeat that. You absolutely need to make money in order to survive. You cannot remove a salary from your life forever. Okay. Why must you make money? Number one, 29% of startups fail purely because they run out of cash. Purely because they run out of cash. Because if you're not bringing money into the business and all you're doing is spending, that's what happens. Your business is going to run out of cash and you might have to close your doors. Ultimately, if your business does not make money, you don't have a business. You have a very expensive hobby, right? You cannot, or maybe you have a charity and you're getting donors, but that's still getting money in. You're getting money from a donor or from a bank or from an investor. That's still money. But ultimately, your business needs to generate revenue. You need to bring money into the business because otherwise it's not a business, okay? You need money to pay the bills, period. You need to be able to pay maybe for office rent, utilities, salaries, production costs, software, hardware, data, airtime. I mean, there's so many things that you need to be able to pay for. And like it or not, money is the way that we buy these things. So without money, you're not able to even pay for the running costs of your business. And eventually, you also need to make money from the business in the form of a salary because your life also has financial needs. You yourself have rent or a mortgage, or maybe you want to buy land so that you can build. You have your own utilities that you need to pay for. You might have school fees for yourself or for your children. You have to buy food. And of course, we also all want to have fun. So that all costs something. And whatever that costs for you, I'm not judging. It can be as high or as low as you feel comfortable with. But it costs something and you need to be able to earn money, make money in order to pay for that stuff. The next truth to consider is that you may need to build new networks. So what do I mean by this? Remember that you might have changes in your personal and professional relationships, or maybe you have no previous experience in the sector that you're moving into. So for example, me, I spent my first 10 years of my career working in financial services. And then in 2012, I decided to leave that industry and embark into coaching for business owners. But I didn't have any experience in the small business space at that time. Yes, there's very similar concepts between small business and big business because many big businesses are subdivided into small businesses. So there's absolutely ways that you can use your experience in different ways. But because of that, the people that are in your previous circle may not be relevant at all. So you need to be able to get yourself into circles where you can get the experience in the places that you want to be in, and that you can also maybe meet customers, etc. Right? New networks is also, networking is super important. You need to be able to talk about your business. Why? People need to know that you exist in order to know that you have something that they can buy. Okay, so you need to be able to network in order to grow. You also want to have a network of other entrepreneurs who understand the highs and the lows. Remember, I came from a corporate setting. I didn't know any entrepreneurs until I became one myself. And then because of that, no one in my previous circle could understand why I was having such a hard time. Why would I give up such a lucrative career where I was getting a decent, like not even a decent, I was getting an amazing salary. I had a pathway to financial freedom. Why would I give all of that up? The only people that really understand why you'd be willing to give that all up are other people who are doing the same thing. So you want to have a network of entrepreneurs who understand the highs and the lows, but who also can teach you about the things that you may not currently know about. So you can bounce ideas off of other entrepreneurs. You can also speak to experts about things like marketing, finance, compliance, licensing, sales, management, hiring. When you have a network of people around you who have similar expertise in those areas or similar experience, that's where lots of rich ideas can come from that can really help to move you along much faster. So you might need to build new networks. The people that are currently in your circle may not be able to continue to serve you. And not to say to you that you have to cut everyone out, but you need to be conscious that you might need to continue to grow that as well. Truth number 6, the government, any government, is roughly a 30% shareholder in your company. Okay, think about your taxes. Here in Kenya, they're 30% corporation tax. In the UK, where I was before, it was 20%. Other East African countries have anywhere between 20 and 35%. So roughly 30% the government is a shareholder. The second you decide to register as a company, 30% of your profits, of your earnings, are going to go to them, to the government. Okay, so you always have to be conscious that they take money from you in the form of taxes, whether that's corporation tax or pay as you earn salary tax. You are paying tons of money to the government. Here on the continent, compliance with our lovely governments is not easy. Information is very scattered. Sometimes the information that you find is outdated. Often it's very difficult to understand because it's in jargon. They don't want us to understand. They really want us to be able to make mistakes with our businesses when it comes to tax, because when we make mistakes, then they can issue fines, they can put penalties on us. Non-compliance with our governments costs us a lot of money. So always bear in mind that the government is a stakeholder in your business. You need to make sure that you're doing things right by them, that you're following the rules, that you're being compliant, because anything other than that is likely to land you in a bit of trouble at some point in the future. Maybe your government won't care when you're a small business, right? Because they're like, oh, okay, that person's just not making much and I don't need to harass her right now. But the second you start to see progress, or you start to see momentum, or you start to see more money coming in, be sure that they are going to take notice of you and they'll say, okay, you owe us some money. And by the way, you haven't done these things for the last 5 years. Don't end up in that position. It can really, really cost you a lot. And the final truth about entrepreneurship is that it is fulfilling. It absolutely is fulfilling. Being your own boss comes with great freedom, right? You're the person that can make the ideas happen. You can make the decisions. You can enable other people to also fulfill their potential, whatever that might be, as staff, or maybe it's for your customers, or maybe you're running a social business and you want to have an impact. There's so much freedom that can come with it. Time freedom, financial freedom at some point, right? And even just emotional freedom, because it's sometimes very, very, very nice to not have to listen to anybody else other than yourself when it comes to making decisions, right? And I know there's some comments about being your own boss in the chat, right? When you have a business, you can truly make an impact on the customers that you serve. And there's nothing more enjoyable than seeing your customers happy, seeing them say or hearing them say great things about you, having them refer you on to other people. There's so much joy in that. The other thing that's joyful is seeing the results that you're able to make with your customers. So for example, with my clients, my business owners, it brings me so much joy to see the transformation that they all go through from where they start at the beginning of my programs to where they finish 3 months later, because I'm able to use my knowledge, use my experience, and really make a difference to their business, and to see them grow, to see them thrive, to see them happy that they are their own boss, right? Having an idea, making that idea happen and seeing it actually work brings so much pride and satisfaction. It genuinely gives us the reasons to get out of bed in the morning when the days are hard, like actually seeing your idea execute to its completion or to a great state is just very rewarding. And finally, the journey can be a lot of fun, So look at the people that are here today with us, who might be joining in the accelerated program next month. There's lots of people here who you probably haven't ever met. We have representatives from so many different countries today. So it can be a lot of fun. You can make great connections. You can talk to people on other sides of the world that you never even thought that you would have a chance to interact with, all through being an entrepreneur. There's so many opportunities that can be afforded to you if you take this journey. And I know many of you who are with us today have already joined in on this journey. Okay, so that covers off our myths and truths. Now I want to touch on a couple of unique challenges faced by women in business. And these are things that we can also discuss further as we get joined by our panelists. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for that conversation. So I want to highlight a couple of these unique challenges just very, very briefly, and then hopefully we can bring these into the dialogue that we have in the next 45 minutes as well, okay? So also share with us in the chat, what have been your experiences as a woman in business? Pop those into the chat now. We'll also bring those into the panel conversation, which is going to start in just a few minutes. So what have been your experiences being a woman in business here on the continent, both the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly? What have you experienced? Here are things that I have seen over and over and over again. Okay, remember I was running this networking club for women in business here in Kenya, and we had over 700 women who were part of our network, participating in our events, sharing their expertise, learning, facilitating those conversations. and people being really open and honest about what they were experiencing. So these are the 4 that come up all the time, but I'd love to hear more of yours in the chat if you have other experience of highs and lows. So our challenges as women in business all over the world, but definitely here also on the continent, are these 4. The first is something called imposter syndrome. Now, this can affect men as well. All of these things can affect men as well, but they definitely affect women more. Imposter syndrome is this belief that regardless of how experienced we are, regardless of how many years we've been doing what it is that we're doing, regardless of how many people sing our praises and tell us that we're great, for some reason we tell ourselves that we're not. We tell ourselves that we're no good at what we're doing. We tell ourselves that we shouldn't bother to go after that contract because there's no way we're going to get it. We tell ourselves that we can never work with big organizations that are funded by the EU. All of these things are these negative thoughts in our head that eat us alive and stop our momentum. Now, women do suffer from imposter syndrome more than men do. I don't know why this is. Maybe it's just because we're constantly told that we can't do stuff for many, many, many years. We've been told that we can't do things, so we believe that to be true. Imposter syndrome is going to be one of those things that you actually just have to get used to, because even when you start to build up your expertise, so let's say in the beginning of your business, let's go back to my business. Remember, I made this transition between corporate and then coaching, entrepreneurship, working with small businesses. So from corporate to small business. I very easily said to myself in the beginning, why is anyone going to take you seriously? Why are they going to believe that you can help them when you've never done this before? Why, right? You question yourself, but you continue to put one foot forward, because what's the alternative? The alternative is to give up. And there was no way that I was going to do that. So then I start to build up experience. I start to grow my network. I start to get some paying customers. And I feel more confident, right? I feel like, okay, that worry that I had before that I can't do this or that people aren't going to take me seriously is no longer really valid, because now I've proven to myself that I can do it, right? However, now I'm 2 or 3 years in, and the next bout of imposter syndrome is going to come, because maybe the next big thing I have to do is to hire someone. And I've never done that before. So how do I now hire someone? How do I manage someone? I think that I'm not going to be good at it. Or maybe a few years after that, I decide that I'm going to change up. Maybe a few years after that, I get invited to host this training, right? And at the start of this training, or the lead up to the training, I think to myself, oh my gosh, like, what if they don't like it? What if I don't get my message across clearly? What if no one is engaged? And I think, okay, they're going to think I'm a phony, or they're going to think that I'm not good at this. But that's not true, right? So the more that we do things, the better that we get at it. But the truth is, we also just have to get good at putting that inner critic on silent, on airplane mode. I am not listening to you today. I am not going to disbelieve in myself. I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to try, even if it's hard. So that's the first one, imposter syndrome. Feel free to put your hand up if that's something that you've experienced before. In my experience, most of you have. The next thing that we struggle with is access to finance. Now, although statistically women are far better at managing money than men, and if you look at something like Kiva, which is this lending platform for small business owners, women entrepreneurs on that platform historically have a higher payment, a higher success of their businesses and repayment of those initial loans than any of the men entrepreneurs on that platform. So even though we as women are often known, statistically, we are known to be good with money, be better with managing money, to be able to manage households, etc., in the outside finance world, we're seen to be useless at it. We are not trusted. It's often seen that, a woman shouldn't get this funding, and they'll fund a male-dominated business, a male-led business before they'll fund a female-led business. This is definitely changing a bit, because there are now more and more programs that are focusing on female entrepreneurs and women in business, but it still is a challenge, because when you have a room full of investors who have white faces, and let's say they're mostly men, because it's very rare that you see even women on those panels, there's always going to be that bias, right? There's always going to be a bias where a white man will sit on a panel and he will look at a white founder, probably a white male founder, and immediately he will believe more in that white founder's business just because there's something similar about those two people. They are both white men. He immediately trusts what that guy is saying before he might trust a white female or a woman of color. Absolutely more than a woman of color. So there's already this bias that comes into place when we're going for finance, right? Whether that be in a pitch competition or going to a bank manager, etc. There's always going to be more skepticism on our side. So that's definitely a challenge that we face. Our male counterparts, of course, also face funding challenges, but there will often be more of a bias that funds male-led companies rather than female. Another unique challenge that we face is work-life balance, okay? Because as one of, I think it was Christine who shared at the very beginning, that there's this myth that women with children and kids will not have the time to meet leadership obligations, right? And it's true, we do have challenges with work-life balance because we do have households to manage, or we do have children to take care of, or many times we might have elderly people in our family to also take care of. And the reality is that that responsibility will most often go to the woman in the household, not to the man in the household. Fortunately, here on the continent, there's often more domestic support at a more affordable rate than there are in places like Europe or in the US, but that doesn't make it any less difficult, because when we're trying to focus on work, we want to be able to put our all into it. But at the same time, there's a conflict in our heads of, but I'm missing my child's pickup time, or I want to be able to go see my mom, or I want to be able to have this dinner with my girlfriend who I haven't been able to catch up with in some time, and she really needs me, right? So having that balance, just because of the additional domestic responsibilities that we always have, makes it even more challenging. We do so much more in such limited time than those who have less responsibilities at home. And then the other challenge that we face, and we're just going to be completely honest about this one, is that there's patriarchy, right? We, especially here on the continent, we are still very much existing in cultures, systems, and structures that support patriarchy. And this also exists in the European context, but here it's even more so. So there will be biases that are genuinely put against us because they see that they're women. Sometimes we also, this used to happen to me a lot when I first moved to Kenya. I would think that I was organizing a business meeting, and then I'd meet someone for a coffee, and then they'd start flirting with me. And it would be very clear very fast that this person, this man, have no intention of doing business with me. He was just trying to take me on a date. Now this happens, and it's so frustrating because that's not what we want, right? And yet we somehow have to exist within this context of patriarchy and do the best that we can given the parameters that we have. One of our panelists who's joined us today works within a very male-dominated industry, so I'm super excited to hear her insights into this area. But continue to drop things into the chat if there's challenges that you specifically have faced or that you want to chat more about with our panelists, and we'll take those towards the end, okay? So without further ado, I now want us to get into our panel discussion. So EBN team, Ruben or Dawit, could you please invite the other ladies on as co-hosts?
Sure, Danielle, thanks. Thank you very much. My colleague David is making Crystal Khalil from Veritas, Lebanon, Kirsten Mason from St. John's Innovation Center, United Kingdom, as co-hosts, and also the two entrepreneurs, Beza Beckell from New Heights Construction and Kitawa Wemo from Mama Social Ventures.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Let me also just give a quick overview of who everyone is. Again, I know that Ruben, you just given some things, but I have some bits to share. So first we start out with Kirsten Masson, who's the head of programs and development at St. John's Innovation Center in Cambridge in the United Kingdom. There she oversees the delivery of all business support and coaching programs for tenants, virtual tenants, and companies in the region. Kirsten also jointly co-founded and runs a social enterprise which focuses on developing music projects for health, well-being, and social good. Welcome, Kirsten, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kitawa Wemo, who manages Africa's first assisted technology accelerator, which is called Innovate Now. And she's also the founder of Mama Social Ventures, which is based here in Nairobi, Kenya. Mama Social Ventures is an impact venture for early stage tech founders with a bias for female entrepreneurs in the East African region. Welcome, Kitawa. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. Great to be here.
Next up, we have Beza Beckell from New Heights Construction. Beza is the founder of this newly established construction company, which is based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. She is ready for her business to leave its mark in the interior construction and finishing sector. Beza, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And finally, we have Christelle Khalil, who is currently the programs director at Berytech, which is based in Beirut, Lebanon. She manages the projects lab unit responsible for the design, development, fundraising, partnership development, and management of innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic development programs on the local and international scale. Thank you, Christelle, for joining us today. I know. And just a mention about Christelle. So I know that we have some representatives here today from French-speaking countries where French is going to be your first language. If you do have questions that you feel more comfortable asking in French, feel free to pop those into the chat and Christelle can answer those later when we get into the Q&A. But we're trying to really maintain this conversation in English as much as possible. But if there's something pressing and you don't know how to express yourself properly in English, then please take advantage of our wonderful French speaker who's with us today. All right. Great. So without further ado, thank you all again so much for being here. I'm really excited for the richness of this conversation that we are about to have. We have shared some preparation questions with our panels, so we're going to be jumping through some of those, but I do want to make this a conversation that's much more about what our participants today need to hear. So again, pop your questions into the chat as we continue this conversation, and we'll make sure to get to those all at the Q&A at the end. All right, so what I'll do actually is I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can focus on our faces instead. Let me just do that, and we'll come back to the screen in a few minutes. All right. All right, ladies, welcome. So let me jump right on in and get started with some of these amazing questions that we have. So we've already shared a little bit about your background and the type of work that you do, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your motivation for doing the work that you do. So let me give each of you a brief opportunity. We'll just go in order: Kristen, Kiki, Beza, and then Christelle. Why do you do the work that you do?
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's great to be here and joining you today. So the reason I do the work that I do is I'm absolutely passionate about working with entrepreneurs. In St John's Innovation Centre, where I'm based, in Cambridge in UK, there are about 90 tenanted companies, so 90 companies that are based in our innovation centre. They are technology-based companies on the whole, and most of them are run by men. And I'm trying to change that. But one thing I'm passionate about is helping people who've got a technology try and make money out of it. So helping them understand that just because they've developed a solution doesn't mean that they've got customers that are willing to pay for it. So helping them find their markets, helping them understand how to express what they've got. They may be able to talk about the technology in a lot of detail, but they need to talk about the value of that technology to a potential customer. So I spend a lot of time with companies both in Cambridge and across the UK, helping them work on that. My other passion is access to finance. So we know, and we've talked about it already this morning, that access to finance is a major barrier to starting and growing a business. And I particularly want to support those businesses that have got the opportunity to grow, both in their regions and nationally and internationally. So making sure that they've thought about what finance they need for their growth journey, how to access it, and making sure they access it in the best way for them is another real passion of mine.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. Kiki?
Thanks, Danielle. I'm really, really glad to be here amongst such powerful female entrepreneurs. And I think answering your question, the Kenyan ecosystem in terms of the startup ecosystem is not very old. I think our first unicorn, which is undocumented, but M-Pesa, is just over 20 years old. And being young, I just turned 30. I remember getting into that space myself. And there was so many men, which wasn't a problem, but it was also just trying to find my identity as a female entrepreneur. So unfortunately, there wasn't too many people who would help you bounce ideas off at that point. And I remember I would get my ideas from watching movies or, seeing what's happening in Silicon Valley. And anytime I saw a strong woman, they would have to be, in a gray suit, in a blue suit, and very stiff and very disconnected. And I really didn't feel like I identified with that as a female entrepreneur. So I set up Mama Ventures to help entrepreneurs who are not just female, but young entrepreneurs to find their rhythm through and navigating a very lonely space. And if you look at the African narrative, our parents don't even know what entrepreneurship is in the first place. So when you're sharing with them that you're an entrepreneur, it's very difficult for them to express to other people. So for me, I do what I do to help younger people follow their passions and still be able to track a very successful business at the same time, and help people make sense of what really entrepreneurship is. And looking at Africa, impact is a big thing, and really having true impact, because for most entrepreneurs, sometimes it feels like we are forcing the impact story. And even with Africa, it's always sometimes so sad, let's donate and let's do this. I really want the impact story to be empowering and life-changing for Africa. So that's why I wake up in the morning and support entrepreneurs. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Beza, let me move on to you. Why do you do the work that you do?
So I started off as an architect, and I was designing a lot of homes for people, restaurants, hotels, office spaces, and most of the time what I design and what the contractors deliver at the end, they don't exactly meet my standard, or they don't deliver according to my design. And most of the time the clients would tell me, oh, we love the design, and if you could maybe follow up yourself, or if you could manage the workers so that it turns out to be exactly like the design, it would be great. So then I started following up with the contractors so that what they deliver meets the design. And gradually I started knowing how to deal with the laborers, the experts, the carpenters, the technicians. There are specific type of laborers for each kind of material. And so then slowly I started, getting the hang of managing them, and also getting the hang of, the application of the materials and using it efficiently. So it was a slow process. Like I spent about 4 years designing, and then after that I entered the construction sector, gradually. And it's like so fulfilling to see satisfied customers with the pleasant spaces that you're designing for them and that you're building for them. So I think even right after graduation, I wasn't employed. I've always been, eager to start my own business. And even though, like you said earlier, that it's a male-dominated industry, which we'll be talking more later, how it's so challenging. But I think when what you have is a lot more stronger than the challenge that's out there, you'll be able to push or overcome the challenge itself. So the industry is very challenging. It's very hard to manage the workers. It's very hard to keep up with the material, because in our continent, we import most of the materials. So we're dependent on the foreign market, and that also has a great challenge for us. But But yeah, I mean, the reward is much more fulfilling because, you know, meeting happy clients at the end of the day is yeah, it's very
Keeps you
fulfilling.
going, right? When you have satisfied people and you see the impact of your work.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. Christelle, why are you passionate about what you do? What makes you do the work that you do?
I'm passionate about, like everyone said, to work with entrepreneurs because I believe I can create change through them. So basically, if I want to talk a bit about my country, Lebanon, so as you know, we've been facing a lot of challenges, a lot of crises on top of economic and COVID. So for me, working with entrepreneurs, is really contributing to a change to my country and to the region because I have the chance to help them implement solutions, develop solutions to problems. And I'm extremely passionate in particular about social and green businesses. So I worked a lot on lobbying for development of this concept, encouraging people to integrate social impact and green impact and sustainability part of their business. And working closely in the context of Veritech, meeting a lot of entrepreneurs throughout the years, it really makes me happy because you always keep up with innovation. You feel through the programs that we develop and the support that we give, you see the transformation that you can share with through the entrepreneurs, and you make them execute their startups and develop their business in a successful way, and thus contributing to a positive impact on the community. So this makes me really passionate about my work.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, ladies. So I'm going to jump in with some questions first for the entrepreneurs that are here. So for Kiki and for Beza. My first question for you is, what has your experience been of doing business on the continent? So maybe Kiki, very Kenyan specific, and Beza, Ethiopia. What has your experience been in the regions and the countries that you're doing business in, both positive and negative? So maybe give two things that are going great and two things that could really be improved.
I think if I was answering this question 3 years ago, I'd be very sad, just because there wasn't a lot happening for entrepreneurs generally. And I remember also I was in a phase of trying to figure out how exactly to brand my business, how to express my business to many people. I remember the biggest, so the hardest thing was not being able to define myself. That was just a personal just because I would end up applying for so many competitions or for grants or financing without understanding really who I was, and I would just keep getting rejected just because I didn't know who I identified my business as. But the minute I figured out that I was an entrepreneur support organization in building curriculum, in facilitating curriculum, in identifying that accelerators and incubators are my customers and not the entrepreneurs themselves, then it really shifted the dynamic. And now the positivity of working in the continent is there's so many amazing opportunities from developed countries coming into Africa. So we see a lot of non-profit organization, for-profit organizations like BMW coming in. You're seeing universities coming in with research and wanting to invest into the startup ecosystem. So that has been great because it has found that the timing is right for the business, and we're able to find really good opportunities to connect the two, especially on culture. How would you help a business from Norway understand how to work with a business in Kenya, for instance? That has been really a good time for us. So I'm seeing that the positivity has been in a lot is happening in the continent, and it's the best time as an entrepreneur to really, master your language and master your brand to really position yourself out there. So I think those are the two things I would speak of at the moment, because I think we're going to have really exciting conversations on the same.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks very much. And Beza, what about for you? What has been your experience so far of doing business in Ethiopia, both the pluses and the minuses?
So Ethiopia's economy is currently growing, and there's so much construction going on in the city. If you look around, it's like you'll see buildings, popping up right, left and right, and when you look up, you're like, oh, have I seen this building before? So so it's the best time, I believe, to be doing construction here. So that's a plus, because I think prior to this time, I don't think like the construction business was booming as much. And the challenge, I think, would be the lack of we don't locally manufacture a lot of the construction materials here. So the challenge will be that we are dependent on imported materials, and the local materials that are produced here don't really meet the the high quality standard that it's usually required by the clients. And so the lack of or like the lack of quality that we find in local materials is a challenge. And also the lack of variety of materials, like that's also a challenge for us, because we are kind of limited by the materials to produce the when the end product is dependent on the available material, it's not as it doesn't give you so much freedom to deliver something that you imagine, or the designers what the designer really wants. So you have to make compromises, and sometimes that's also challenging. And also there are so many like the tax related to tax and regulations. The government doesn't understand that some of the suppliers, they don't want to issue local formal papers for the transaction, because they don't want to show, they want to make it seem as if their companies are still like small companies while they're still making big transactions. So you have no proof of showing those transactions. And so by the end of the day, your tax your accountant has no proof of showing those transactions, and you have to pay tax for those transactions as if it's your profit, but it's like you have purchased the materials. So these are challenges, but the upside is that the timing is good, but there have to be some adjustments done by the government, so that all contractors stay motivated to keep building and to keep meeting their clients' needs.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, like, supply chain challenges are definitely an issue for you, especially as you're bringing a lot in from outside. And this is something that I've also seen here in Kenya. We just can't get everything locally. So we are dependent upon stuff coming in and all of the regulations that come with that, from customs to clearing to corruption. Let's just say the 3 C's, right? So everything that comes as a challenge in that way. Kiki, I think you wanted to add a point in on.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is a huge, for the entrepreneurs that I work with and in my network, one of the key things is there's a definite disconnect between the government support for entrepreneurs and financing. So I always tell a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with and say, most of the time you're actually on your own when you're starting your business for potentially the first 3 years. You have to really, really bootstrap your way. And, it's very easy to register a business in Kenya. It can take you even a day or 2 days to register a business. It's all digital. You don't have to go to a government office. If you're a foreigner, you can actually register with a local and actually start a business. But then when, we hear that there is financing for entrepreneurs, but then most entrepreneurs are young, they don't have assets. So how do you get a loan and you don't have any asset to give back? So, we have to now be deliberate in engaging other stakeholders for financing. So we have so many, registered businesses. Over 80% of the businesses in Kenya are startups, small businesses that have been registered by young people, but there is no financing. So how do you grow and sustain an economy that depends on you? So that really is one of the key things that we're still struggling with, and hopefully we'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect here in Kenya. I can't speak specifically about the other countries, but we have government agendas that promote entrepreneurship and say, yes, 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 grow business. And then we have so many government policies that make it almost impossible to do business. It's almost like they want us to fail. They don't want to give us money. They don't want to give us the support that we need. And yes, there's that disconnect. So this actually leads me on very nicely to my next question. And any of our 4 panelists, feel free to jump in to answer this one. What do you feel is missing from the support that is currently available to women in business? Specifically on the content, if you have context here, but more generally in the UK and Lebanon, if your context is from there. So what do you feel is missing from the support that's out there right now?
So I can share a few insights. We need some missing support on the policy level, so maybe to lobby for more legal setup and framework and regulations that support businesses, entrepreneurs and businesses in general, and women in particular. So we definitely also need more funds, so more funding mechanism tailored for women entrepreneurs. We do have a lot of things happening in Lebanon on the level of programs that are addressing specific segments and mostly women entrepreneurs. We do have angel funds for women entrepreneurs, but definitely we need more support in access to funds. And I would definitely also stress on access to markets and support in export, especially on the international scale. So. Also, there's a lot happening, but definitely more can be done on the level of support for rural women. So women in the rural areas to create their own businesses and provide more support on the rural level in Lebanon.
Great, thank you so much, Christelle. Any other ladies want to jump in? What do you feel is missing?
I would definitely agree with everything that Christelle said. In the UK, it's surprisingly difficult as well. It's very easy to set up a business. 660,000 new businesses were set up last year in the UK, wow, which is incredible. But 20% of them fail within the first year and 60% fail within the first 3 years. And so that ongoing support for companies to be able to grow their business, to understand things like how to get routes to market, how to find suppliers, how to grow their team, all of the sorts of things that you were talking about earlier, that support network training is really important. Tax breaks. So in the UK, we do have some tax breaks for things like if you're working in research and development areas. Also, there's some tax break for investors to invest in businesses, which makes a big difference. We wouldn't get investment without it. So that is something that certainly, I don't know whether that is available at the moment, but if not, that's definitely be something that I would be thinking would help enormously. But also things like networking, setting up networks, peer-to-peer schemes. For women in particular, there are so many common issues that we face that you talked about in terms of doing business in the patriarchal society, understanding the pressures of managing a business, growing a business with family life and caring responsibilities. So having some peer-to-peer groups and some networking support, I think make a big difference.
Yes, thank you for sharing those insights. For me personally, having both UK experience and experience here in Kenya, those topics that you've brought up are the ones that I kind of bang on about all the time. The government incentivizes investors in the UK to go after early stage businesses and to take that risk because they mitigate a lot of that risk as a tax break, right? We don't get that here. So there's often this discussion about foreign investment funding local entrepreneurs and this disconnect between foreign money and local founders. But the challenge is like there's so much money here also on the continent that can go into local businesses from local investors. So that is a conversation I think for another day when I get on my soapbox about access to finance. But that's like absolutely like incentivizing people to want to go into business and to want to support entrepreneurs rather than maybe buying land or developing a building. whatever else people want to do with their cash. Thanks, Kirsten. And Kiki, Beza, either of you, do you want to jump in and share what you feel is missing from the support?
Well, I feel that the conversation is well covered. I don't have any new ones to add. Yeah.
That's great. So we'll move on to the next question then. We have someone who's raised their hand, but go ahead and pop your question into the chat if you do have a question. We'll come on to those in a couple of moments. So another question back specifically now to our entrepreneurs, so to Kiki and to Beza. What is one of the biggest barriers that you have faced in your journey, and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, so I'll just jump at it and say one of the biggest barriers is on, I think it's usually a bit controversial in saying that you get a lot of donor or rather grant-focused financing for entrepreneurs. And that is great, but then it leaves a huge gap when the donor or the grant depletes for the startup. So in terms of scalability for businesses on their own, that has really been a huge barrier in trying. And I think this is even why I set up Mama in the first place. My background is in public health. I'm working at AMREF, which I'm still doing like public health innovation, which is something I'm really, really passionate about. And I set up Mama because I felt that there was a huge disconnect in terms of financing. I really felt sad as an intern from the university and working in Africa's largest public health NGO and seeing that programs were taking so long to be successful. And when you go down to why this is happening, the community tells you, but you're giving us free money. How do you expect us to make your program successful? And so they actually end up stretching out that period, from 5 years to 10 to 13 to 18. And that's why I set up Mama, because I wanted for us to have scalable, sustainable businesses without the money. And so so I feel like that's still something that we are dealing with as an ecosystem in trying to disconnect between free money and running a business that, will end up being invested in, being acquired, and then at the end of it, you end up, being on the board of your company. So I always also see that very few entrepreneurs see that value in growth. So even when you're having investment conversations, they still want to be in the business 30 years down the line. But I'm like, no, a business means that you actually step out. This is not your baby. And I keep telling entrepreneurs like myself, that was the biggest mistake that I did to myself in, branding my business as my baby. That gives me so much attachment to it. And I can't, it's like someone telling your baby is not cute. And you're like, no, my baby's cute, or they're brilliant, they're the best thing ever, even when they're messing up. So that emotional connection, especially for women, I think that is one of the toughest things, because we tend to then be very, I know, but it ends up being very toxic. So that's a huge barrier between ourselves and also just disconnecting around the conversation around growth and investment and the support that we need as entrepreneurs.
Great. Thank you so much, Kiki. And Beza, what about you? What's the biggest barrier you have faced so far in your entrepreneur journey, and how have you overcome that?
You're on mute. Sorry.
Beza, you're on mute. Yeah. There she is.
So with construction business, it's a little bit different because the biggest challenge is winning that contract. So if you win that contract, then you'll get advance payments. Obviously, you need to get something called like a bank guarantee. So they will hold whatever property you have, and then they will guarantee that you'll perform the work. So for me, initially, I was very lucky because my first project was a very big project. I won like the head office for an insurance company, which like I said, I was very lucky to win it. But I also had to play smart to get it, because there's no way that I would have won that project if I had just entered the competition with my company's name. So because my company was new and I didn't have any, profiles or background of doing similar scope of work, because that was a big project. Like I knew that I can do it, but I just don't have proof. So I approached another company, and I talked to them straightforward, and I told them, hey, I'm entering a competition to finish the head office for such and such insurance company. I know I can do it, but like my company profile is not big enough. So we talked, and we had a deal that they will get a certain amount of the profit, but I would be working under their company's name because they have quite a rich portfolio. And then we had another subcontract agreement between the two of us. So I entered the competition with that company's name, and I did a great job. Like I completed the work. It was intense. It was like my friend was saying, it was like my baby. Like I invested so much of my energy. Like I was so attached to the project, and so that attachment is so strong. But because you're working day and night, you're going there weekends, but you're doing this like with so much energy and passion and motivation. So it takes all of you. And so when that project was completed, I talked to the clients. I told them, now that like the work is completed, you've moved on, you have moved into the building, and you have settled well. I just want to let you know that the company that is somebody else's company, but I entered a contract with them to finish the project. But this is my company, and if you're willing, please write a recommendation for me. And they were so satisfied with the job that they wrote a good recommendation letter for me. And so after that, it became easy to get other projects, because now I have a letter, I have a recommendation from them. So the biggest challenge is, I guess, earning trust from big corporate clients without having a big portfolio. And I guess I don't know if, from their side, there's nothing that they can change, because they can only trust you based on what you have done. But for someone who's like driven,
is she frozen? I think she might have frozen. Oh, and I think we might have lost her. So apologies, guys. We all know what the connections are like. Sometimes they're on the continent. Ethiopia is known for having horrendous internet sometimes. So hopefully she'll be able to come back and join us. But what Beza's sharing is that we won't always have the credibility in other people's eyes. Oh, are you back?
Can you guys
Great.
hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
So, okay. So sorry for that. And what I was saying is, like, for the companies, in order to trust you, they need to see some, background history. But, as a young entrepreneur, you might not have all that portfolio, but that you're capable inside of you, because you've done similar projects, but you just don't have, enough paperwork that they need to see. And so I think it's a big challenge, because especially some of us we want like opportunities to show what we're capable of, but sometimes you need to have so much. You might have a lot of experience because of what you've been exposed to at different work sites and similar work projects, but just having those formal documents, sometimes it's very hard, especially in the construction, because there's so much knowledge in the informal. You can speak to a carpenter who's worked for 20 years, and he'll tell you so much about wood, or a mason, he'll tell you so much about all the things, but he might not have all those paperwork. So right. I think that's one challenge in our industry.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that the barrier that you mentioned in terms of, not necessarily having the credibility on paper to be able to go after big contracts is something that many of us in the early stage of businesses will face. So partnering in the way that you did is a perfect way to do that. Finding other ways that you can collaborate with people that might be a little bit further along just to build up your credibility is great. And I love that you then went back to the client and said, hey, by the way, it was actually me. Please, can you write a recommendation? Because other people's testimonies of the work that we do go far further than us saying ourselves, yeah, I'm great at this thing, just trust me, you know? So that's definitely, you took the right steps there of overcoming that barrier. And I hope that other people listening today have been able to think about that for themselves. Like, rather than saying I can't do it, or I don't have the expertise to do it, try to ask yourself big open questions of what do I need in order to be able to do this? Or how can I deliver this given the parameters of what I have? And as Beza did, she said, okay, I know I can't do this on my own. Let me find someone bigger that I can partner with. So try to keep your mind open to options rather than saying, I can't, or I won't. Okay. Great. I'm conscious of the time. I want to ask everyone just one last question, and then I want to open it up to the audience to ask us questions. I don't want to keep our panelists too long. I want to be mindful of everyone's schedule. So the last question I want to ask for all of us, and apologies to the ecosystem builders, because this one was actually under the entrepreneurship section, but Kirsten, you're also an entrepreneur because you have a social business, and Christelle, I'm sure you have insights to share. What do you all wish that you knew sooner? What do you wish you knew before? And jump in any order. What do you wish you knew about business before you got started, or before you got to where you are now?
I would say from my perspective, so just to give you a little bit of a potted history, I had a consultancy business. And at the time I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I was juggling the family and managing the business, but it was going very well. And I was building up the team quite slowly. And then my son, he wasn't developing properly, and he was diagnosed with a disability. Which meant that we had to move to get special schooling for him, which meant it was very difficult for me to do the hours and the travel that was required for me to maintain my customer relationships. So I was having to ask my team. So I made that major mistake that you mentioned earlier of not putting enough resource into my team, of trying to do it all myself. The customers wanted to work with me rather than other members of my team. And actually that wasn't going to work for me any longer, because I just didn't have, my personal circumstances had changed. I wasn't able to be in London where my business was as much, and I hadn't sufficiently resourced and trained up my team in order to able to make it work smoothly without me there. So very much what you were saying earlier about making sure you build and develop that team. We're not going to be brilliant at everything. We do need to use our networks and our support. The other thing I would say from that is don't waste a mistake. So it's very easy to go, right, I failed. Don't think about it like that. Think about it, okay, what have I learned from this experience? What has that taught me? How might I use those learnings to do things differently? So having that resilience mindset, trying to be a bit creative in problem solving, talking to like-minded women for me made a real difference to help me decide how to address that and move on from that. And actually everything that I've learned from that experience, I now help other entrepreneurs to deliver in their businesses. I would also say that the networks that I've created are absolutely fundamental to both my own success, but helping the companies that I work with succeed. So being able to connect in people. So if somebody's looking for a supplier, for example, or a partner to deliver a piece of work, I can connect up individuals. So try to make as much of the networks that you currently have, and make sure that you spend some time to focus on building networks as part of your journey as an entrepreneur. It's really, really easy to focus on the day-to-day to-do lists. I must do this, I must do this, I must do this, without taking a step back and thinking, right, what are those really important things that I need to focus on that are not absolutely urgent now, but they're fundamentally important to the success of my business. And as I've gone through that period of business success, business failure, business success again, I've learned how significant that time, carving out that time for me to think on those strategic, really important pieces of work, and that relationship building is absolutely fundamental to success.
Those are great points. I love it. Networking, teams, it's all the stuff that we spoke about earlier. Yeah. So thanks for reiterating those points. Other ladies, feel free to jump in. What is one thing that you wish that you knew sooner? And just a reminder to our audience today, pop your questions into the chat. We're going to be getting to them shortly, so get them prepared. If you have any questions for our panelists or for me, we'll get those answered before we head out. But ladies, what's one thing that you wish you knew sooner?
I will share some insights from the entrepreneurs I work with, and like hearing them what they would have wished to learn sooner. And this is some advice as well for everyone. So I would say learn to listen more, listen to the market, listen to the feedback of the customer, and really be focused on the, the product market fit, like not what I think of what is the best scenario I see. No, it's you should really like look from the market perspective, and hear and take feedback and adjust the business. And I would definitely highlight how to cope with changes, how to have lean and flexible business models, because I've seen this during COVID. So my role was really to support businesses in pivoting their business model to thrive. And the ones who did it, who succeeded, were the ones who really could adapt, find alternative strategies, resources, adjust rapidly with their customers. So I would like to share these two pieces of advice.
Great, thank you so much, Christelle. Kiki or Beza, or both of you, what's one thing that you wish you knew sooner?
I would say proper allocation of responsibilities to my team, because I was so impressed by the way our panelist was explaining earlier, how it's so easy to get so into the day-to-day lists that we make. And then there are times when because I have like a lot of engineers or team members, and I kind of allocate them to different sites to manage the different sites. And there are times when I look at my time and it's like noon, and I haven't like checked on all of them yet because I'm busy doing the tasks that I've allocated myself. So I think having a good structure, like I think what's kind of lacking from my company is that I'm still like, even if I say that I wish I knew this earlier, but I'm still trying to kind of be everywhere and trying to manage everything. And I mean, it's getting better, like I'm way better than I was like 6 months ago, but it's still like it's like sometimes if I'm not available on the phone for like 3 hours, and then when my phone is back on, it's like there's a disaster everywhere. Right. So it's like the all the teams need me, and I think I wish I wish I know how to make them run without being so dependent on my availability. Right. And I think that would be a real achievement for me someday. So yeah, I wish that I could get there sooner. Maybe it will be nice to get into such discussions in the future to kind of get, have your company stand on its own without needing you so much, or without needing your involvement for every single thing that's going on. I mean, it's nice to know everything that's going on and to be updated, but it's like I should be updated about like what happened. Like it should just come to me as a report, like not all my team members. I don't want to have them calling me like every second for everything, but that's how it's going. And because I don't want to disappoint my clients, I always have to be available for my team members. So yeah, so I think
it makes it hard. And the bigger your business grows, the more competing things there are going to be for your time. So this actually leads, and Kiki, I'll come to you in a second, but this leads to the question that that Naja was asking earlier, which is when you're the only person, how could you manage the business marketing, relationship management, financial management at the same time and be the seller, right? The truth is you can't, right? You might be able to do all of those things, but you won't do all of them well, right? You are going to drop the ball somewhere. Things are going to fall through the cracks. You'll disappoint your customers. You'll upset your team. There'll be so many things that happen if you try to do everything. So, Naja's sharing, I have 3 years experience, but this is still my problem. Make your first hire. Get one person to come in and help you. Even if that one person, when you start off, is an assistant, a personal assistant, an executive assistant, just so you can get rid of some of the admin responsibilities that come with each of those functions, right? Because when you think about relationship management, maybe there's emails that need to be sent out to your clients. Maybe you need to have a scheduling tool that people can book and see your availability. Maybe you need to have follow-up emails that are sent out. That doesn't need to be you. You can have an assistant that comes in and does that, right? Or when you think about the finances, there's different pieces of it. There's the bookkeeping part, just the data entry. You can get an assistant to do data entry for you, and you can be responsible for the oversight of the numbers, the analysis of the numbers, maybe also in conjunction with an accountant. Don't feel like you need to fill all of these positions with full-time people. You can also just get consultants or part-time contractors to do what needs to be done, maybe a few hours a week or one day a week or a couple hours a month for some things even. So try to move away from that model where you think you have to do everything on your own, because you won't be able to do it all well. And neither should you ever expect to be able to do it all well, because some things we're naturally good at and some things we're not, or some things we have an interest in doing and some things we don't. So you have to move away from that. I also myself, for many years of my business, was a one-woman shop. And the second I started making investment into staff to do things for me, my business grew exponentially. More money came in, more customers were booking, things were getting booked out, because I could then focus on business development and delivery while other people in my team were doing marketing, social media, and administrative duties. Yeah. So try to get there, even if it's just one person, part-time, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, try to get there. Kiki, what about for you? What's one thing that you wish that you knew sooner on your own entrepreneurial journey?
Thanks, guys. So I'm conscious of time, but I just wrote it down so I'm able to follow. I think the first thing was just learning to say no. I wish I learned to say no much earlier in my business, because when I learned to say no, then I focused on exactly what I was doing. So, it's something that as entrepreneurs, maybe when you're looking for money, when, you're still in the early stages and someone asks you, can you deliver this? And even if you can't, you just say yes and hope that you'll jump on YouTube and you'll learn in 24 hours and then surprise your client. Sometimes that doesn't work. So learn to say no and focus on what you're really good at. At the beginning, our venture builder used to do everything in a business model, but now we focus specifically on fundraising, on valuation, and on metrics. That's it. But if someone asks me to support them in building curricula that is talking about value proposition or teams, then that's something I can do. So that was really one of the things. Then the other thing is, I wish I learned how to take a break and be selfish of my time. So the biggest thing that I used to read, what the most successful entrepreneurs, you have Elon Musk, you have Steve Jobs, you have all these amazing people, and they wake up at 4 a.m. and they do all these things, and I'm not a morning person. And I just used to be so cranky and I used to be so irritable. But I just learned to just figure out, what does Kiki want? What does Kiki like? And, I figured that I don't take anything, any work calls before 11. I get to do my own, deep work before 11. And then I can get to meet people when the sun is out, because that's when I can meet them for 1 or 2 hours. And I don't have to meet them every day. So I really learned how to be selfish of my time and say that, sorry, I don't take calls on this time, or I'm on holiday and all this stuff, because then you're your business. And if you burn out, then your business burns out. And then more tangible, I wish I learned how to price my business properly from the beginning. And I think what we end up doing is, sometimes you are asking your client, how much are you offering, as opposed to, this is what my service is worth. And then when you are able to price your business properly, then you have provision to hire people because you've considered that if I'm hiring someone to do this, it's already factored into my pricing from the get-go. So it doesn't mean that it shifts according to what I'm being offered, but it allows me to negotiate better and know that this is my ceiling or this is my floor. I don't take anything below this because I need to pay myself, I need to pay someone, and I need to pay my bills and keep the lights on in my house, because as an entrepreneur, no one else is going to do that for you. So those are my 3 things.
Those are great. You are a woman after my own heart. These are the things I talk about all the time. We need to have boundaries in our business. We need to get into a position where we say no to business. So, you know, in the beginning, it can be difficult to say no because we don't know where the next money is going to come from. We don't want to disappoint potential customers because we don't have any customers. We're like, yes, let me take a customer. But the more that we can say no to the work that drains us, to the clients that drain us, to the opportunities that don't fit with our vision, our mission, the more that we can then focus on the things that do. Rest is super, super, super important, and putting boundaries in place to allow you to have that adequate rest is absolutely essential. Even for me, I don't take meetings on Mondays at all. I don't take any external appointments on Mondays because then Mondays is my admin day. That's the day that I can focus on all of this stuff that we keep putting off, like finance, follow-ups, payments, etc. I do all of those on Monday, and also emails. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday then become the days that I take open for meetings. But like Kiki, there's certain hours of the day that you can book in with meetings, and then there's other hours of the day that you can't, right? And then Fridays, everybody is off in the business because we don't need to work 4 or 5 days a week anymore. We can, if we're focused in the work that we're doing and we pay attention to the time that we're spending and how we're using our time, we can actually get a lot done in far less time than we currently are. It's just about having the right goals, setting the right priorities, and then taking constant action. And then yes, pricing, the earlier that you can factor in your pricing, the better. Thinking about what your own lifestyle costs, what your business costs to run, and then how many clients do you need in order to get to those numbers. And that's something that we'll be covering off more in the accelerator program, which I'll be telling you all about in just a couple of minutes. But before we move into those next steps, I'd like to open up the floor to our audience. What questions might you have? Please put them into the chat and we will be going through them in order. I see one now from Farhia. How can we avoid copy best business? I think please just clarify, do you mean how do we avoid copying other people's businesses? Just clarify if that's the question that you have, Farhia.
Yes, I mean similarity business in different areas.
Okay, great. So how can you avoid making those copies, like so that you're unique and distinct from those businesses? Okay, great. Ladies, who wants to jump in and answer that? How can you avoid copying other businesses who might be great in the industry, but you don't want to be them?
I would say that this is where innovation comes. So innovation is not like inventing something from scratch, but you can take something that exists in the market, yet innovate in a specific area, whether the business model, the product. And I would answer, how can we avoid is by doing constant innovation in our own company. And again, I go back to listening to the customers, like keeping up with the customer trends. How can I differentiate myself? What my competitors are doing, and keep up this exercise in all the ventures lifetime. So constant innovation, research, and good relationship with the customers.
Great, thanks, Christelle. Kirsten, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Christelle has said. It's really important to understand what those companies are like that you think are near to you, and understand your own unique selling points. So what do you want to be known for to be different? It might be that, for example, you're selling a similar product, but do you want to be known for sustainability? Do you want to be known for excellent customer service? Have you got fantastic packaging? etc., etc. So even if you're quite similar to somebody else and selling something that they're already doing, what is it that you want to be unique for, and how do you present that to your customers? And that you need to think that through in terms of every area of your business, particularly marketing. So how do you present your business so that people are clear what differentiates you?
That's fantastic. The last thing that I would add to that is, don't feel like you have to copy them. You might think that they're the best business out there, but in reality, behind that facade, they might be struggling just as much as you are. They may not actually be making as much money as you think. Their customers may not like them as much as you might be led to believe. They may just have a lot of budget that they can put towards telling nice stories and making nice pictures and having these all singing, all dancing features that make it seem like they're doing amazing. So as the ladies have shared, find out what you want to stand for, make yourself unique, and develop what it is that your customers want by defining who those customers are. Yeah, great. Any other questions that we can answer for you today from the audience? Do share them in the chat if you can think of anything. Great, Naja, natural disasters like COVID-19, we faced a lot of loss and we spent our backup the past year and a half to cover our businesses from loss. We couldn't even take money from banks because of high rates. So basically, how do we recover? So just to recap that, COVID last year obviously put us all through the works. All of our businesses have had to think about different ways of doing business, and many unfortunately haven't been able to pivot and to figure this out. And because of the lack of money that's coming in, yes, we're spending our reserves. We're not able to take money from banks. So ladies, what would you recommend in this instance? What have maybe you done in your own businesses if cash has been tight? What are your suggestions for Naja? What she can do to recover?
I think it's one of the things that I always say is when you look at business models, they are not static. You have to keep changing. So you don't, as opposed to having a business plan that is pretty much a very solid document that you can take to the bank, always keep looking at your business model and see what elements can you adjust on, whether it's especially on the cost and revenue aspect. Those two building blocks for me are usually the best thing to play around with as a business and see what to do. So unfortunately with COVID, what most of us have had to do is again, build from the ground up and start seeing what in my business model didn't work and what works, and then focusing heavily on what worked in that period and then supplementing with what you've previously done. So personally for me, my business was built on supporting hubs physically. I had to travel, I had to train, I had to do all these things. And COVID happened when I was in the middle of, coaching for different programs. So, and I had no less than 2 weeks to shift to an online delivery model. While that was difficult, it has become our unique advantage that we are able to actually train a lot more in a lot more programs. And it's an added advantage to say those who are funding such programs to say, oh, then we don't have to consider too much on the transport, and we can compensate on paying you on your delivery and your curriculum development. So I would say one, just COVID or no COVID, always keep looking at your business model so you keep improving on what's really good and seeing what doesn't work. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm conscious of the time. I'll take one last question in this chat. So from Filsan, what is the difference between constructive criticism and sexism/harassment? What do you think? What's been your experience? What do you think is the difference?
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I think that's why everyone's quiet. It's a tough one. It's a fine line sometimes, right?
I don't know. Actually, I have to think about it. So.
Yeah, I think this is a really challenging one. I mean, in my opinion, what I would share is that constructive criticism should be comments that we genuinely believe are useful, right? And are constructive. Constructive means that it's meant to get you from where you are now to a better place, right? Like hey, here's some feedback on how you might be able to pivot your business model. Here's a way that you can talk about your business, like things like that. Like, hey, have you thought about talking about it this way? Have you thought about doing it this way, right? These are things that are constructive. Something like sexism or harassment would be, who do you think you are doing this? You're just a woman. Or what makes you think that you can get a contract with the government looking like that? That stuff is blatant sexism and harassment. Also, when you get someone, whether it's a man or a woman or anywhere in between, when you get someone who's making inappropriate comments, whether, and it doesn't even have to be sexual comments. It could just be anything that you find inappropriate. That is also harassment, right? So anything that makes you feel like you're being like judged for your gender or unfairly treated because you're a woman and not a man, or there's disbelief in your ability, again, because of your gender, or if a man says you can only get this contract if you let me take you on a date, these are all things that definitely fall under harassment and sexism. If it's someone just saying to you, hey, I think that you should try to sell it like this, or I think that you could think about expanding into this market, or people might still say that your idea is rubbish, but as long as they're not saying you're a woman and therefore you should get out of this industry, you know, I think, but it is a fine line. Sometimes we think it's not a big deal, and then it happens again, and then we realize, oh no, the first time was actually a big deal also. So trust your gut, trust your instinct. If you start to feel uncomfortable, stand up for yourself, or maybe even share it with someone else who you trust to say, this is the situation I'm going through. Do you have any suggestions about how I can deal with this particular person? Also, you know, set your, again, coming back to boundaries, you may remember at the start of the panel discussion I was sharing, actually before the panel discussion, I was sharing about just patriarchy and harassment in general of you know, men claiming that they want to have a business meeting, and then it becomes very clear that what they actually wanted was a coffee date or a dinner date, etc. Put boundaries in place where you say, okay, if I'm meeting a man, I only meet him during the day. Like there's no evening meetings that take place, even if they suggest a dinner. Never go and meet someone at a bar. You know, make sure that you're in a public setting or that you're in an office professional setting, and, you know, be clear, like, no, I can only take this meeting at this particular location, so that those things don't even cross their minds. Like, don't get me wrong, they'll still cross their minds, but it makes it more difficult for them to take any action on it if you're in a professional setting during daylight hours. Yeah. But yeah, Filsan, I'm sorry that you're experiencing that. If that is indeed what you're experiencing, if it is sexism or harassment, I gravely apologize for that. It sucks that we all go through this. Please try to stand up for yourself, make sure that you're safe, and do tell other people if you feel like you're in any sort of risky position or danger. Yeah. All right, so that wraps up our questions for today for our panelists. Thank you all again for joining us today. Kirsten, Kitawa, Beza, and Christelle, we are so grateful for the insights that you shared. Before we wrap up with today's session, and I'm conscious that we're far over time, I just want to cover off the next steps for this program. So as we shared at the beginning, there is going to be an accelerator program specifically targeting women in business, women entrepreneurs in 4 countries. So Somalia, Ethiopia, Angola, and Madagascar. This accelerator program is kicking off 2 weeks from today, so on Wednesday, the 6th of October, and it will run for 10 consecutive weeks. I will be the one that was delivering the training and the coaching during that program. And the aim of this acceleration program is to really help you to get focused, get confident, and to get more customers. You go through several different, well, you'll go through 6 different business modules during this program to teach you those essential business skills that you need to make sure that you are in the strongest position that you can possibly be in to grow and sustain your business. And also that you have all of the skills that you need as a business owner, even if you can't afford to hire other people to come in and help you. So this accelerator program is open only to 20 women for this first cohort, and applications close next Wednesday at close of business. So my colleagues now, Ruben and Dawit, are going to drop the email address. So if you want to apply for this accelerator program, put your email address and your name into the chat, and we will send you more information. I think there may also be a link that the team can share with you now in the chat so that you can find out more.
We will send them the link, Danielle, today after the session.
Perfect, perfect. So everyone who's registered for the session, keep an eye out in your inbox.
Mhm.
Ruben is going to be sending you the link so that you can apply. As I said, applications will close next Wednesday, so get it in there quickly. If it doesn't feel like the right fit for you, then do share it with the women in your network, because perhaps it will help one of your peers. Okay. So finally, I just want to say thank you very, very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to take you through these myths and truths of entrepreneurship, the unique challenges that we as women on the continent are facing in business, and also to have all of these amazing insights that we've had from our 4 panelists. So thank you, ladies, again for joining us and for sharing your expertise and your wisdom. Thank you to BIC Africa for hosting this, and of course to the European Union, who is funding this initiative. Hopefully I'll be seeing all of you again in a couple of weeks as we kick off the accelerator. But feel free to find me on social media, on LinkedIn, or on my website, stepandstone.com, if you have further questions that you want to ask about this topic. All right. Great. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Christine. Fantastic, Beza. Thank you all again. All right. Take care, everyone. See you all soon.
Ciao.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.